Good to see you far away.
Kia ora koutou. I'm very pleased to present to you today the Communications and Engagement Activity Management Plan. Before I do, I like to start with a very brief introduction of the team that supports communications and engagement here at Council. Emma Tarua, our Marketing and Identity Manager. Next to her, Kat Cooney, who's our team lead in design. Julia Evans, our Senior News and Media Advisor, who's acting News and Media Manager at the moment, while Jocelyn, she is on holiday and perfectly timed. Kim Delaya, our Principal Communications Advisor, who is acting Strategic Comms Manager, while Sarah Kelly is on leave. Absent today, unfortunately, is Tessa Zant, Engagement Manager. So this activity provides strategic comms, marketing, engagement and consultation, design and media support and advice to help Council inform and connect with residents and communities. This activity, as you know, is delivered by the Communications and Engagement Unit, and our focus is very, very much on the resident. We want to reach people with the information that they want, using the channels that they prefer, and in ways that are easy to understand and access. We want to build stronger relationships with our residents so they feel more informed and are more empowered to shape and influence the decisions affecting them and their communities. And we also want to make sure that our staff have the information and tools they need to feel confident in the ability to communicate consistently. We're a high-performing unit, so let's talk a little bit more about that. The News and Media team, they provide the media and social media support and advice to the organisation. In the last financial year, they responded to more than 2,300 media inquiries. They more than deliver on the level of service that requires them to respond to these media inquiries, 90% of them within 24 hours. Our channels, Newsline and our social media channels, Facebook and Instagram, and we've seen a 6.9% growth in Newsline last year and a 14.5% increase in social media page views. For our external communications, marketing and design, they provide communications and marketing support, advice, they develop strategies, and they produce that resident-focused copy, content, advertising, and promotional material. In the year in review, that's 64 communications plans. That's more than 100 marketing projects. And if I flick through here, that's 910 design jobs completed. And you can see some of the great work there up on screen. Engagement, they're providing you with the engagement and consultation support and advice, the strategies, plans and tactics to involve residents in decision-making. 53 consultations last year, more than 12,000 submissions, 97% of them we're now receiving online. And since the start of the new financial year, the engagement team are averaging one new consultation every couple of days. So it's a bit mad out there at the moment for our consultation. Our unit services the entire organisation. Each of these functions has slightly different key clients, but not surprisingly, our key players are transport, water, parks and rec, parks, rec and sports, events, and curbside. We also deliver an award-winning service. Most recently, we were recognised for innovation and engagement in the Innovation Awards, but previously our social marketing campaigns for curbside and also our marketing campaigns for Hepuna Taimawana. And our communications and engagement approach to transport projects was recently recognised by Waka Kotahi as best practice. So what are our residents saying about us? 72% of residents are satisfied that our communications, marketing and engagement activities are effective, helpful and relevant. However, this activity does have a role to play in our levels of service related to governance, decision-making, trust and confidence, and our results in this area are a wee bit lower. 29% of residents are satisfied with the opportunity to engage with Council and the ease of that engagement. And so that obviously is a focus area for us. To stay relevant, we need to maximise our existing and emerging channels and adapt our processes to suit our residents' changing expectations. And for us, that means a growing focus on digital. Now, we signalled this in the last activity management plan, and we're really doubling down on this now. Digital first as our primary, but not only communication channel, because increasingly that's just how our residents want to engage with us. Digital first also supports our commitment to the Otatahi Christchurch Community Resilience Strategy, Climate Resilience Strategy, sorry. And on that, this activity also has a role to play in helping our communities prepare for and respond to the impacts of climate change. Looking ahead, we'll have even greater responsibilities to lead climate action in areas where the Council has control and influence, and to partner with others to amplify climate action across the region. So, community outcomes. We strongly support a collaborative confidence city and a cultural powerhouse city. We help drive participation, we generate revenue for our facilities, we support and deliver engagement processes that enable our residents to have a say on their future direction of the city. And of course, we showcase council services, facilities, events and activities. In terms of strategic priorities, we have a really big role to play in building trust and confidence in council, and we do this by focusing in on what's important to the residents, by making sure residents know that we're listening to them, and by involving them in the decision-making processes. And also we have a role to play there in reducing emissions as a council, and for example, those social marketing campaigns where we look to change behaviour. As mentioned, this activity plays a key role in helping our communities prepare for and respond to the impacts of climate change. We support council initiatives to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And we also provide public information management support for civil defence emergencies and incident management. So in terms of some of the key issues that are facing us as an activity, equity and access. That's a really important one for us. How we communicate and engage, the channels and tactics that we use, all have an impact on access and equity. So we remain very focused on reaching people with the information they want, using the channels that they prefer, and in ways that make it easy for them to access and understand. Tiriti to partnerships in an area where we need to focus more resourcing and capability. We need to do better at building a Te Ao Māori perspective into our communications and engagement. Identity and social cohesion are areas where communications and engagement can have some influence. In a rapidly diversifying society that we see, good comms and engagement supports improved social cohesion. We can help build connections. We're also there to help counter some of the negativity, the misinformation, the distrust that occurs when there is low social cohesion. And finally, technology, total game changer for us. It's changing expectations around what information is available, how it's made available, and importantly, the speed at which it's made available. We need to be making the absolute most of technology and the opportunities it offers us to engage with our residents. So our levels of service, we have 5 customer, 5 management levels of service. We're proposing some minor tweaks to some just for consistency. We're proposing to remove a couple where there's duplication and poor weak targets. And finally, we have no capital related expenditure. Instead, I like to think we provide excellent value for money. We run a tight ship, we produce high quality work, we can produce a high volume of work, and we deliver a lot of bang for buck. And that's through.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good work you guys do. Just one question in my head is around the digitally challenged.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're going to be looking after them going forward.
Absolutely. And so why I stressed digital as primary, but not only. So we spend an awful lot of time thinking about how we reach our audiences, making sure that we target our tactics accordingly. And so we absolutely see the need and value in hard copy and face-to-face communication as well as digital.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Katie. So my understanding is that the communications that you do tend to be invoiced effectively to the various departments that you're doing work for. So transport, if they're doing a project, they pay for the work that you guys do.
Yes.
So what happens when something unexpected happens, such as COVID, those kind of things? Do you have your own proactive communications budget to deal with those kind of things?
We have a little bit of leeway within our budget, and we make the most of that. But we don't have necessarily a budget set aside for specifically for corporate communications.
Okay.
What we're doing is carefully managing some of the money available to make sure that we give ourselves a little bit of leeway there to do what we need to do.
Okay. And do you have any concerns about that currently?
I believe I will be able to manage on the budget that I've got. However, I would like it to stay where it sits at the moment. Okay, thanks.
And the other one was just on working with other areas. So it became clear earlier this year, and so I guess last year as well, that civil defence, while they're doing work in the communities and have developed some plans with some communities, they had assumed that the comms team would be able to do the comms work on that, and they don't have any budget for comms. Are you working with civil defence at all in that space? So, yeah.
Yes, look, we it's a live conversation between Brendan and myself at the moment about how we support the unit. They do require more communication support. That's another thing that we would have to factor into our work program. We provide that on-call emergency management, and we provide a bare sort of like minimum, but what we don't provide quite with quite so much intensity is that full support that they need to go into the communities. And as we know, never underestimate how resource heavy that can be when you're dealing with the community.
Yeah, so I just know that like some communities have done plans but haven't been able to communicate them out to the wider community because there's no communications budget at all.
No.
So I think we need to work on, and that maybe with a civil defence budget or something, so that we can actually help the communities plan.
Yanni?
Thank you. I was just interested in what resource you've had available to promote local decision making and like the new community board structures, the new wards, for example. Like, I guess I'm just a bit concerned that we haven't done enough to make people aware that the boundaries have changed and that there's new community boards, new areas where boards are meeting. Have you had a budget to promote, I guess, community awareness of the representation review post it being implemented? And if so, how much is it? And if not, how could we actually get some work done in that space?
So as Councillor Templeton mentioned, we use money from other people's budgets. We don't have a budget set aside for that. So we would need that budget to be provided to us in maybe John Purcell's area, something like that. However, and I don't want to get ahead of something that will be more widely released, but we do have some exciting stuff happening in the community board pages that we have on the website, and what we're able to do that with our new engagement software platform, and we're hopeful that you're going to be encouraged by that.
So just so if we wanted you to do the proactive communication around what the community boards are, what the wards are, the boundaries, etc., do we give you a budget through this process, or are you saying we need to go through John Purcell?
It's something, yes, you could give a budget through this process, absolutely, but I don't have a budget sitting there specifically for that purpose.
So where we've got like, old community board signs still up on, at old centres, it seems kind of weird that like no one from the communications department looks at that and goes, what is the comms we need now that we've changed our community boards, changed our wards?
Yep. Okay. I can take a note of that.
And then we used to fund residents' newsletters to be printed and then distributed. Do we still do that?
That's something, as I'm aware, comes out of the community board funding. It's not something that sits with us at a corporate level.
Right. Okay. And the final question is the start work notices that go out when we have things like road closures. I've had feedback that we only go a certain amount because of budget, but sometimes it seems kind of ludicrous, like for the small amount of money saved versus the benefit of letting people know with a start work notice through letterbox. Is that coming out of your budget, or again, is that transport?
That would be a transport. Yeah, that would be
saying they can't afford it.
That would be a project-related cost as opposed to a communications cost.
Okay. So we change the transport budgets. Do you give input into when they do stuff like that?
Yes, we do, and we do provide support, and we are well supported by our colleagues in this organisation, and we provide advice on that. And we can certainly look sort of like on a case-by-case basis on how far and wide we go with the start work notice. Sometimes it's an effective way of reaching people. Sometimes actually it can be more effective to pop something up on a Facebook page, for example. Yeah. So maybe that's something we can take a closer look at in the coming months on how we're using that, because we really need to make sure, as I said, biggest bang for buck. Sometimes printing stuff and popping it through someone's letterbox just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, I guess the community feedback I get is when something directly impacts on someone's thing like property access, having something through the letterbox is
absolutely
is really
and in
important.
That instance, I would expect them to have something. It's the wider field ones where it's potentially impacting them. If they consider going down that street but they don't live on it, that would be a different conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni. Aaron, please.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So mainly around the apathy or lack of people that we hear from, not so much the ones we do hear from, because I'm sure most of us could lift 50 submitters we'll get on the LTP or the annual plan every year. So the two questions are, one is around, it'll be good to know as a number and it to become public, how much our submissions each year, you said there's 53, I think, for the year. Was that how many?
53 total, that was 53 consultations.
Yeah.
And we'll well exceed that for the coming year, but yes.
Yeah, because it's an LTP year. So it'd be good to know the cost of the 53, and then you got 12,000+ submitters, what it actually costs per submission, because then we've got that argument we can go back out to the public and say, yes, we have to consult. But as a public, you're wasting all this money because we're hearing from the same people and there's a whole lot of others we're not hearing from. So, kind of a bit of reverse spin there.
Okay.
And then the other one is the same on the LTP is, can we market this coming LTP, because given the financial situation we're in, and tell us how you don't want us to spend your money rather than the other way around, because we get everyone coming and telling us what to spend money on, but we don't hear from. They'll come up to us in a bar or a supermarket or something and whinge and complain, but they don't come in here and do it. And we need them to. And so say to the public, tell us how not to spend your money. And we might, and I'm saying that because we might get a whole lot more submitters we don't hear from rather than more of the same. Sure. And we haven't got all afternoon, so I won't list them all.
Leave that one with me. That might need a tiny bit of wordsmithing, but I certainly understand the intent.
Yeah, I'm no poet.
Okay, Andre.
Thank you. Just wondering how the TikTok's going.
Early days. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Early days.
Can you get any, TikTok dances from Mayor Major?
We haven't yet extended the invitation. We'd like just to grow a little bit of support first. So, yeah.
Nice.
We'd like some subscriber numbers, yeah. So early days on that one. I'll let you know when the first TikTok goes up.
Cool. I don't actually have TikTok, but interested to see how it goes. There's some councils putting out some pretty engaging stuff, which is pretty cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Good question. Tyrone.
Kia ora, Katie. I know you've been doing a lot of work with the likes of Disabled Persons Assembly and People First and that sort of stuff in terms of workshops and plans to provide easy read kind of things. Is that kind of, are you able to do that within the sort of existing budgets? I mean, there's more and more communities to engage with. Is that how does that look like in terms of expanding or increasing your resource to be able to reach those different communities and diverse communities? Is that a challenge?
It's a challenge, but it's one that we are I think we're able to respond to with our current resourcing. So again, we're able to draw on project funding if we require specific resource. That face-to-face resource, though, of course, does sit within my team. It's the connections that we're making, the relationships that we're making, and also setting a bit of expectation around the types of engagements that where we go and make sure that we have heard from a diverse audience. So LTP, for example, will be one we will absolutely be doing an easy read and making sure that we have the resources there. So we have accessibility is not an issue. Yeah.
Celeste.
Kia ora, Katie. In terms of the community board information, can you just explain a bit more around what the strategy will be to make sure that we've got sufficient comms going around the more localized issues? I know, for instance, in our community board at the moment, we don't have any public facing information outside of consultations because we don't have a newsletter that's been put out yet. So I know that there's been some delays, but what's the strategy going forward to make sure that it's not just the sort of metropolitan focus, but we can localize issues as well?
So we're working closely with your governance teams on an approach that makes the most of our new engagement platform, Social Pinpoint. As I said, I'm getting a little ahead of things here, but you are going to be fully briefed on the opportunity that that provides, and that will give you that kind of local communication, local engagement, a sort of like a one-stop shop, a site for where people can go to find out everything about your board.
And as part of that, so you'll be seeking feedback on where some of the gaps might be.
Yep.
Okay,
Well, we are
great.
certainly getting that from your governance teams. So if that's something that you could send through to them, that would be fantastic, because we are working very closely with them literally at the moment on this very thing. So if there's some gaps there that you would like to see filled, can I encourage you please to work with your governance team, and they can pass that information on to us.
And then final question, is there sort of sufficient funding to make sure that some of the work that might be moving to community boards in terms of managing newsletters and things, they've got sufficient resourcing to take on those additional tasks? Because if that was previously managed within sort of teams here, and our community board governance teams are taking on that workload, that they've got the resource in place?
So again, I think it's probably working smarter with what we've got and the technology that we've got. So the newsletters that we did previously were electronic. What we're proposing is another digital solution to this that we are hopeful is going to be resource light, not resource intensive, and will achieve a better outcome than potentially and they were at times sporadic newsletters, depending on which board we were talking about. So yeah, just give me another month, Councillor Donovan. Give me another month, and we'll be there to show you something.
That'd be good.
Kelly.
Thanks, Katie. I think you guys do an amazing job with your team and your resources. Yeah, to inform people, and I've always found the website fantastic. Yeah, one of the things that I value the most are the media queries which come from your department. So painstakingly answered questions of journalists, etc. And you do a really, really good job of that. It's very, very informative for me as a new councillor. I just wondered if you could comment on things like the practicality of answering things like letters to the editor. I know we can't control everything that is said about the council. However, I see a lot of very stupid letters in the press, and I see that they exist in a vacuum, that there's no answer, and they hang out there without being held up to the light of the facts, you know.
You can respond.
Yeah, I know I can respond. And I'd love to, but it would take some time. Have you got any thoughts about that? Because I feel like that undoes a lot of the good work that we do, is that there are some very stupid letters, stupid ideas, hung ill-informed, you know, kind of hung out there and not answered in any way, shape or form.
So we don't directly respond to letters to the editor. However, there are options available to us, and obviously Mayor Major can do an opinion piece if required. What we do tend to do is use our other communication channels to respond to that. So if we can see something's getting a bit of a head of steam, then that's when we might say, righty-ho, time for a Newsline article, time for a Facebook post, time to push it out through the channels that we do have available to us. And that's how we would do it, rather than go head-to-head in a letter situation.
Okay, Victoria, then Mel, then Dawn.
Kia ora, thank you. Katie, it appears that there's just constantly an increasing demand on your team and on the services and the resources, and it must be an ongoing challenge to manage that appropriately. We're heading into a really difficult long-term plan with significant financial headwinds. I'm really interested to know if you were required to prioritise, how and where would you do that?
Prioritise communications within the unit.
Yeah. I'm happy for you to go away and think about that. But, you know, we're heading into a period where we may just not be able to do it all. And if there were some things that you were required to reprioritise, is there anything that, how would you do that?
While Katie's thinking, how about if I help her?
Yeah, thank you.
Would that be all right, Katie?
Thank you, Dawn. That would be fantastic.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Which also might deal with the question that I've got, which is more a case of expressing your opinion, please. And you've described it, the volume and nature of our engagement and consultation is exponentially growing. And we consult on practically everything, yet our communities often feel and say, we don't want any more consultation. We actually just want you to get stuff done. So that aspect of the question of getting the balance right, good quality engagement and consultation rather than for the nth degree to get the same answers. And what's your view around the aspect of how can we get that into a controllable method that genuinely delivers results for councillors and council?
So we're definitely looking at the significance and engagement policy. That's one that's going to be coming up for review fairly shortly. Another area that we can possibly provide some advice back to you is on delegations, because obviously if there is a delegation there that says that there's a decision, then that triggers some level of consultation and engagement. Certainly an area of focus for Tessa and her team, and it's a great shame that she's not here to talk to this, but it's around early engagement. What we can do at the beginning of the conversation, which means that we have a greater understanding of community views and preferences, which means that we don't have to go to the extreme consultation level engagement further down the track. Now, we're already seeing some advantages in that, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing with playgrounds, for example, and parks, we are changing the focus on how we do that. It ends up with a better result for the community. It doesn't necessarily mean a reduction in resource for the unit, and I do have to make that point. All we're doing is shifting where the focus is. So it's not about doing less, it's just doing more in that early engagement phase and less then in the consultation phase. And these are all things that we're considering. We have high hopes for our new software platform. That is certainly changing the way things are going for us. And we also have some avenues we'd like to explore with you around expectation setting, around how we manage the expectations of communities and to a certain extent elected members around the extent of the engagement and consultation that is required, particularly for some of our smaller projects. Now, it goes without saying for our bigger projects, it's an all singing or dancing show, but there are some smaller things where we could possibly try a different approach, and that would require your support and the support, I guess, of your communities and your help in getting that.
Thank you. Melanie?
I just had a question around the levels of service and the one about engagement with where it mentions about the languages at 4.1.10.5.
So that's the 14 languages.
Yeah,
yes, we nailed that. Like a couple of years ago, it just sits there, it's not doing anything, it's a duplication. So what we're actually proposing, it's around diversity and inclusion, that level of service. We're proposing remove that one and replace it with one that actually has something a little bit more tangible and meaningful that we can drill into who we're hearing from in some of our harder to reach communities. So something that sort of like is the website capable of being translated is just not a fantastic indication of our diversity, inclusion. Are we making sure access for all? And so what I proposed there in the levels of service hopes to address that.
Yeah, but I guess what I wanted to check is that it will be still able to be translated.
Oh yes, of course, yes, absolutely, and even more so. So Social Pinpoint also doubles down on that even more with even what we believe is even better software, but our standard website absolutely still has that. Okay. It's certainly no reduction. It's just achieved. Now we move on to something else.
Okay, and finally, Lynn, did you?
So I'd like to thank councillors for raising some of the real challenges in the communication space. With multiple channels, there's an ever-ending demand for better and more meaningful communications. One of the things that we are working on, and Katie has mentioned one or two, is how do we use technology to automate and make it faster for people to self-serve, which then enables us to reprioritize and put resources into more challenging engagements. So examples would be improving the community board websites and engagement, Social Pinpoint, the recent release of the Sport and Rec website means that a lot more people can self-serve, and that has been a culmination of pretty much 18 months of work. Now, the ongoing requirement for support and resourcing is not of the same nature, so we can redeploy that resource into what the next challenge is. So it's a constant review of how we're applying resources to the highest priority activity.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're at the end.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Sorry, we didn't have flowers.
One.